Hello all and welcome to our ZoidRush video. I'm your host Tmzoids, also known as Tony, and today we're going to be talking about Tyler 1. Now before we get into this topic, I wanted to say two things really, just kind of disclaimers. First things first, I'm not here to sway your opinion one way or another. A lot of people already came up with their opinion. I'm just going to try and be as non-biased as possible, show you both sides of the story of what's going on, because like I said, it just seems like it's already decided if it's good or bad if Tyler 1 is banned. Also, doing some research, articulate your own opinion from this video, do some more research and come up with your own opinion. Like I said, most people already have their set stone opinion, but maybe I can change your mind or at least get you to think a little bit outside the box, which leads me right into my second point. When I thinking outside the box, when I first saw this post on the forum, I was just like, wow, another toxic player banned, cleaned up the community. Riot's done well, and we ultimately did a good job, in my opinion. I was pretty impressed. And then when looking into other things and looking on the other side of arguments, talking to friends and people that are just discussing this topic, I realized it's not as clear cut as it should be, and it's kind of a gray area, honestly, in my opinion now. So I'm on the fence. I really don't know, but let's get right into it. If you don't know who Tyler One is, that's where we're going to start. Who is Tyler One? Tyler One is a streamer on Twitch. He mostly plays League of Legends. He's a master diamond player for the most part. He mostly plays Draven, so some people call him a one-trick pony because he can't really play other champions. But he's up there, high-tier player. And he's pretty much known for trolling for the most part, very toxic, ruining games. He'd troll feed if he didn't get his way. If he didn't get Draven, Draven was banned against him on his enemy team or even on his friendly team, or even picked and he could not get Draven, he would actually troll and pick other champions, just run down mid lane, feed, give up, say nasty things in chat, and has been banned multiple times and warned by Riot multiple times to reform and try and do better. Going forward, he also is known for this list. I call it the Schindler's List. It's just a big old Word document or Word pad which has a bunch of names of who's trolled him, who's upset him, what they did in game, and kind of dates by it and kind of described what they did. And it's a pretty big list, actually. Like, Tyler One has a list of a bunch of people, but different things they've done to him or against him. But I think most of his popularity, and this is kind of like the gray area, his argument of when he really got popular and more known is when he was trying to reform. This YouTube video about him came out, or he made a YouTube video about how he's going to reform, no more trolling, no more toxicity. He's just going to try and focus on winning and, turn himself around and just not be a toxic piece of shit. So after he's gotten this popularity from this reform and really trying to reform, as he's climbing the ranks again and climbing up on different Smurf accounts, two things: the community really took notice. So the community was asking other pro players, and Medios being kind of the head, I guess you could say, the head person for not wanting Tyler One to get this popularity, saying that it's bad because he's toxic, all this jazz. So that happened. He was getting reformed, and supposedly he's getting trolling. People were just giving up on him, like surrendering the games on purpose, trolling him, and he ended up getting instantly banned from Riot. Riot made a release. So here's the pros and cons of the banning of Tyler One. Let's start with the pros. So the pros, just reading the quick article here, it'll probably pop up on the screen or it'll be down below, one of the two, is just explaining the small forum post from Riot. It says, "Hey all, instant feedback catches the most unsportsmanlike players in the league, but some people go out of their way to continue ruining games for the community because of well-documented history of account bans for verbal abuse, intentional feeding, as well as account sharing / purchasing, evasion of sportsmanship systems, and player harassment. We will not allow Tyler One to hold a League of Legends account indefinitely. Any account definitely used by him will be banned immediately upon identification. We know we're not all perfect, and this dragged on too long. We want to know when the player comes along who's a genuine jerk. We've still got your back." That's the post. That's it. So the pros of this, let's get right into it. First things first, he's toxic, like I said before. I thought, hey, he's toxic, one less player who's ruining games, intentionally feeding, just verbally abusive, just ultimately just ruining your gaming experience, as some would call it in League of Legends, and getting him out of there. Just one less person that you have to deal with, one less person you have to queue up with, or have to really worry about like picking Draven or banning Draven and then him raging or doing one thing he didn't like and then ruining the whole game that you could have won maybe. Also, Tyler One was getting this popularity, really known for Riot Games, so now he's kind of like your front runner for players who are toxic yet still playing the game and still encouraging this behavior. And a bunch of people are watching him, like I said. So it's like a poster boy almost for Riot. And this is kind of fights against Riot's like, oh, we're player reforming. Well, you know, we only have the best of the best players who are kind, polite, and all this jazz. And that was pretty much it for the pros. Like that's all you really need for the pro player, the pro side of things. And Tyler One, like I said, he was toxic. He was known for his toxicity, but this is when the cons come in, and this is when the gray area really hits in. So Tyler One really got its popularity after he said he was going to reform. Now, a few things that I wanted to mention right off the bat. Speaking of Tyler One, so Tyler One was going to reform. That was his video. He ignored everybody in chat eventually after this. Once he said he was going to reform, he got really frustrated because people were intentionally trolling him in the games now that he was trying to reform, and people were trying to poke him and agitate him to the point because they knew they could frustrate him. People were actually intentionally surrendering games and giving up on games because they knew that would irritate and frustrate Tyler One. But he muted people. He was trying to reform. He was actually doing quite well, in my opinion, of not doing anything wrong. And the ban really came out after he got this popularity, after he's saying he's going to reform, which leads me right into my first thing, going back to an article a while back from Riot Games. I'll try and find it. But I made a video about this a while back about how Riot Games praised about player reform. They're the only game that really talks about reforming their players, reforming behavior, and really just taking a like a real hit, I guess, for the sociology, psychology aspect of how players work and how they work as a team. And I'll have all these percentages and all these, you know, facts and statistics supposedly about how players do generally better when everybody's getting along, of course, right? So in the article, though, it states, and I remember this distinctly, is it states that only 1% are really bad, really toxic players. Like really toxic, really bad players. So, doing some math, I didn't look up how many League of Legends players. There might be a lot less. There might be a lot more than this, but I took a set number of 1 million. If 1 million players play League and you times that by 0.01%, and that's 10,000 players. That's 10,000 really toxic, bad behavior. Now, when they put in 1%, it doesn't sound that bad, but 10,000 people in a game is a lot, especially spread throughout the ELO. And I'm just talking, and you could say, oh, well, this is all over the world. That doesn't mean it's just an NA. But 10,000 players from all the way from bronze all the way up to masters is pretty toxic, in my opinion. And somebody that praises on player reform, if Tyler was actually in being serious about player reform and he was doing all necessary actions to get player reform, I think this is a hypocritical move on Riot's part for the most part. When it talks about player reform, if he was actually trying to reform, why don't they let him reform and play? And that's pretty much it for the reforming part. The 1%, I just found that astonishing. Like doing the math, I was like, that's 10,000 people. Still, that's a lot of people. And if the number's less, that's a lot more if you think about it in a smaller margin too. So Riot always praises on reform, and if Tyler even got popular off of this and was reforming, I think Riot just had a bad timing and a bad spot for indefinitely banning Tyler, especially if he was actually trying to reform. So I want to talk about XJ9, which is the next thing. So XJ9, his name is actually on the internet. I'm going to say his name, but his name is Joseph. He was pretty much a high elo player, just like Tyler One. Um, Tyler One in League of Legends. He was a streamer for the most part. He was really good, honestly, and he had tons and tons of accounts. His first account, of course, was like XJ9, and that got banned, so he kept making accounts and accounts and accounts, and he was known for his toxic behavior. He was known for like DDoSing, I think, at one point, and really threatening and being a really bad verbal abuser in League of Legends, and eventually getting permanently banned in League of Legends. This was 2 years ago. He was 16 years old, so he was really toxic, really good player, but really toxic, just like Tyler One. Now, why do I bring up XJ9? So XJ9 was indefinitely banned by Riot Games. He could never come back. Everybody talked about him. He got this popularity because he was toxic, kind of like Tyler 1. And XJ9 actually somehow got in contact with a Riot support person, and they were actually going to reform his account, and they were monitoring his account, and he was playing on some, I don't even know what name, like a completely different name that people didn't even know it was him. And they're doing a player reform, and the player reform person, whoever was watching his account, said, "Hey, you're passing all these things, benchmarks, you're doing great. We can actually unlock your account." And XJ9 was going to come back to streaming with League of Legends and actually play League of Legends again on stream. And Riot Light, if you do not recall, Riot Light was like, "Hey, no, 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 XJ9 will be permanently banned. He's never coming back to this game." So they would not. So I don't. This is another thing for hypocritical Riot here. If we're talking about cons, is that XJ9, who was going through the reform system, actually reformed 2 years later. Keep in mind, because he's 18 now, and this was not too long ago. This was like 6 months ago tops. XJ9 was really excited, really ecstatic, and Riot Light just stomped on his hopes and dreams. He's like, no, 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 you're staying permanently banned, right? So when Riot says they really reform and they really work on player behavior, if somebody did reform, but they don't let certain players come back, so that's kind of And especially at the same time with Tyler 1, XJ9 and Tyler 1 are in the same boat now because they're both trying to reform. Supposedly they're doing a lot better. People are trolling Tyler 1 specifically, and now Tyler 1's banned at a weird time, especially when he's really popular. People are really notice him. But the front runner, this is where I really wanted to hit home and talk about things. So the front runner, the main poster boy for Tyler One getting all this attention and all this talk about in the first place was Meteos. Meteos made this was on Twitch as usual, and somebody made like a Twitch view, I forget, Twitch capture or YouTube video, one of the two. You can see it on anywhere at this point. Meteos comes out and says, "Hey, I don't like how Tyler One's getting all this popularity, or any of these players really who are toxic, getting this notice, like getting noticed for this. Like this is just absurd behavior. This is stuff we fight against, and all this jazz." Now, reading in the comments, reading in the actual indefinite bans for Tyler One, there are screenshots of Meteos stating things in game that are verbal abusive and just kind of threatening them. I'm going to read one and it'll probably pop up in the video here. It says, Meteos, C9 Meteos says, "You're a shitty player and a hypocrite." And Base Unu laughed and agreed. And then Meteos says, "Sorry, your dad never loved you, but if you were my kid, I wouldn't either." And this is just one screenshot of many that people have been coming up. But Meteos and Diamond players, just in general, not just Meteos, but Diamond players who are not popular and who play the game and just don't stream or just stay and play the game, have mentioned multiple times that there are pro players and Diamond players that are really super toxic, very verbally abusive, and it sometimes comes off as joking, and you could say, "Oh, well, Meteos was just joking," like he was probably playing with a bunch of his friends, and that screenshots out of context. But I'm just saying in general, Diamond players have mentioned this. But focusing back on the Meteos, so that has happened. So there's screenshots of Meteos saying that he's a toxic player, all this jazz. Here, going forward, when Tyler One got banned, he was on stream. He was actually streaming Meteos. I'm not too sure. This is a speculation because you can pretty much change your name to anything on Twitch alerts. Like when you type in your donation, you don't have to come up as your name. You can type in anything. I could be like John Cena and send the donation, right? So it's speculation. Meteos said that he was glad that he was banned faggot and that he would have to never play with his ass again. You can see that in a bunch of videos. It was live on Tyler's stream when he donated. So you can look that up for Meteos. So that's two hypocritical things, especially I know this is not in game also, so you can't really use it against him. But being media, so being a pro player, you think you'd represent Riot a little bit better. And it's funny because Meteos preaches about how these people are getting popularity and being a toxic, having these toxic backgrounds or toxic things that kind of ruin the game. Meteos here, looking into things, doing a little bit more, I realized something. Doing some research back in 2013, so about 3 years ago, a bunch of players and coaches were banned for elo boosting. So this is against Riot rules and it's talking about popular players and being noticed for things that are doing bad, but not even just doing things that are bad, but popular players who've done bad things. Meteos was on this list for elo boosting, along with Don't Mash Me, Afromoo, Chuper, and NY Jackie, who was a pro player at the time, and of course, like Smithy. So it is funny that Medius becomes this poster boy, this overall kind of I guess your spokesman for Riot or spokesman for the people side of how these people are toxic, but he's done multiple things to break the game summoner's code. He's done things himself that are considered toxic and being just a plague in chat. Even if there's a mute button, still you shouldn't be talking like this. You get reported for this. These are things that get you a chat ban. Now, to continue on, just to put the things home, talking about pro players and people in a light of popular players, two players that come up to mind that were going to be in the professional scene one way or another, supposedly, were actually Nuke Duck and Incarnation. If you don't know who Incarnation is, Incarnation was also known as Jensen now, also on Cloud9, so they're both Cloud9 players, funny enough. But Nuke Duck and Jensen were both banned for a year, permanently banned for a whole year um, when it came to um, League of Legends because of toxicity. And it's funny because these pro players now playing games, especially Nuke Duck and Jensen, of course, he's the mid laner for Cloud9. Jensen is, and then I think Nuke Duck is on Rocat, or he was on Rocat. And it's funny because these players were really good, of course, yes, but they represent Riot, and it's just such a gray area, and it's such a hypocrisy, some would say, for when it comes to cons, because you really aren't really stepping up and keeping people permanently banned or keeping people who are toxic off your game. You have people that are in professional scene, people that are professionally representing you, overall just playing your game, having Riot as your name. Like that is you. You're known in stream. You're known for other things, and it blows my mind that something like this represents Riot, and then you turn around and ban somebody like Tyler1 or even XJ9, who's permanently banned and has no chance of reforming supposedly, and especially XJ9's case where he was trying to reform. The player reform system or person who was working with his case said, "Hey, you're reforming, you're almost done, and then you can get your account back." And fucking Riot Light comes in and says, "No, no, no, you can't do that." So it just kind of seems like a gray area. It's a really touchy area, especially when you're banning Tyler 1 after he said he was going to reform, and that's what you guys praise on in the first part. So that's hypocritical. But really, to hit it home, so talking about pro players, so you're like, okay, well, they were banned for a year. Oh, they don't play. I don't think Nuke plays anymore, and Jensen's changed completely, right? They're not toxic anymore. Just one more person who's been known in the media and actually represented Riot at Worlds, who's now the TSM jungler, just so it's not a pick on Cloud9 or anybody on the EU side, just make a nice round picking on people, is Seven Skin. I thought I would never have to say that name again. I was like, God bless, I would never have to talk about this name, but he still keeps popping up, right? So you're like, how is he toxic? He's a TSM jungler, he's never been banned, but it was last year, maybe 2 years ago now. SK Gaming finally made it to Worlds. Just a great team overall. Seven Skin was like probably your best jungler in EU at the time. Just very dominant, just rocking things, getting his lanes in motion. And while they were training for, I think, at Worlds at Korea at the time, he said really offensive things to the Korean nation, like Korean people. He was calling them chinks and this, that, and other thing. And he gets banned for 3 games. 3 world competitive games, which I guess cost SK Gaming their title, but he actually still got to represent Riot and a team at League of Legends at the biggest event in the world for Riot. Well, the biggest event for Riot Games. It's like your WrestleMania. So it just blows my mind that somebody that has gotten popularity off this reform or this, like, I'm going to reform because I was toxic, he got this popularity, and now he's banned. So just to recap really quick, so I know I did a lot of ranting. So the pros, of course, they no longer have a toxic player kind of representing their game, getting a lot of notice. People are watching him saying, hey, this is if this is okay, then I can do it. He's banned, shows it. Also, he's just one less toxic player in the Rift. So these are the pros, of course. He's not ruining anybody's experience. Now they have a better chance of getting another player or just wait longer in queue now. And just ultimately not have to deal with him and have to worry about playing around his rules. The cons, like I said, you have the XJ9 comparison when he tried to reform and Riot wouldn't let him back. When it would really come down to a gray area of why, when he got banned. Yes, he was toxic at the time, but he said he was getting reform, and now people are trolling him, intentionally feeding and intentionally doing things such as like surrendering to irritate and push Tyler1 to that moment of frustration to just antagonize him and be an instigator. Those people aren't banned, but Tyler1 is. To continue on, a bunch of pro players, like I mentioned, have been banned, have been very toxic, very abusive in their chat, and then get unbanned and represent Riot as a professional team. So that is it. Like I said, I hope you articulate your own opinion. I will link down some of the things, the articles that I have. I have it all saved, so I'll just boom down below if you want. Do your own research. I'm not even kidding about any of this stuff. All this is down below. And I'll see you guys next time. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you hate the video and you're like, oh, fuck you, thumbs down. I don't, either way, feedback's feedback. And if you enjoy, click that subscribe button after this little outro, or you can click the subscribe button down below. I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.